Good morning, everyone. How are we all doing? How's the energy in the room? Many of you probably look at this screen and think, the airport guy. I've been working in airports for years. How come I'm not the airport guy? All right. But I'm going to give you a quick story as a quick introduction as to why they call me the airport guy. So I started off my career as an engineer. I've done an aerospace engineering degree, worked within Lufthansa Technique in their landing gear maintenance and overhaul, then moved on to Heathrow Airport, where on the graduate program I had the honor of going from one department to another and experience what it is that keeps an airport ticking behind the scenes. I went from the baggage system for 6 months, moving on then to the runways, looking after the tunnels underground, the terminal buildings, the air bridges, everything that pieces an airport together. I got a chance to live, breathe, experience the engineering behind it. Now, something that I'd done while I was on this journey was every time I'd learn something cool, I'd pull my phone out my pocket and I'd make a little video about it and I'd put it on the internet, of course, making sure that I wasn't compromising any safety or security, but I'd make little videos on social media and put them online. And little did I realize that these videos would go absolutely viral across the internet. 250 million views later, I was walking through a train station in London, and somebody got off the train, and he got off and he saw me, he was frazzled, and he said, "You're that guy. You're the guy who makes videos about airports. You're the airport guy." And I thought, you know what, it's got a ring to it. So I went home, went onto my page, and I added the airport guy. And when I was sat in a room full of all our engineering apprentices, I said, who in the room decided they want to join Heathrow Airport because of the videos that you saw online of my TikToks and my Instagrams? 53% of the room put their hand up, saying it was your videos that made me want to come and work in this career. So the government for the UK picked on that and said, you know what, can you become an aviation ambassador to represent the Department for Transport in the UK and actually attract that next generation of talent into the industry? And that's what I do full time. So that's how I became the airport guy, in case anybody was wondering. What I'm here to talk to you about today, there's three main things that I really wanted to touch you upon. Of course, I want to bring to life what it's like to be on the ground, but I also wanted to share a few different perspectives. They come in three main things. Number one, we live in an age where there's an informational overload, and I want to touch upon what that means to people who work in every position, but everyone across the board. What is an information overload and how we can navigate it? And then I've gotten really interested in this piece of technology, which all talks about how personality diversity can impact safety. And I'm going to touch upon that as well. And the last thing I wanted to leave you with was how you can leverage the power of storytelling. Because with an age where there's a lot of information, how do you cut through all of that and use stories to get your message to resonate? And to do that, what better way to start off with than a story? And before I tell you that story, I wanted to see a show of hands in the room. Hands up if you were ever a manager who was responsible for investigating and improving safety within your organization. Just a show of hands if you were the manager responsible to do that. Excellent. So there's quite a few of you in this room that are going to resonate with this guy I'm going to call Jimmy. You see, Jimmy was that guy who you'd receive an email from at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Jimmy worked hard. Jimmy put his heart and soul into his role, and his job was to make sure that the industry, his part of the industry, was as safe as possible. But while Jimmy was breaking his back, doing everything that he could to try and make sure that his slice of this industry was safe, over the course of the years, while he was there, he'd look out into his operation and he'd see things like this, and like this, and like this. Poor Jimmy was breaking his back, trying to make his industry as safe as possible. Meanwhile, this is what he'd go to work to. And it had him questioning his life's existence. Why is it that I'm putting in all this effort to try and make this industry safe and make the ground workers safe, but it doesn't seem to be working? Every time I go to work, every time I see that phone ring and I see that number, I get nervous. Anybody can resonate with that? Where there's that one number, if it calls you, yeah, gives you the shivers, and you kind of hold your breath, take a deep breath, and hope for the best as you answer the phone. That was Jimmy, because every time he'd go to work, there was something that was happening that just didn't seem to his core. He started to wonder to himself. He started to wonder as the spotlights shone on him whenever there was an accident or an investigation, as everybody looked at him to see what was going on, he'd ask himself the same question. Why? Why is this happening? Why is it that all these efforts, why is it everything that I'm doing, all the strategic vision that I'm putting into this organization, and I'm trying to drive it in a particular direction, why is it not translating to an actual safer environment on the ground? Why? Why is that happening? You see, Jimmy, like most people, has a long list of things that he's implemented ever since he became the safety manager. He's introduced new procedures. He's gone on to create posters that he's plastered all over every single corner of the organization that you can get a hold of. He's gone and done road shows where he goes and speaks to the frontline colleagues, and I'm sure there's plenty of these things that resonate. Hands up so far if of these things you've done one of these things, right? This is the work that we're meant to do, right? But not only that, he doesn't stop there. He does toolbox talks, and he empowers them using presentations, and he sends out those presentations, and he empowers people to pass on those presentations, and then he adds checkpoints to the checklist, and he's doing everything that he can, and he's even upgraded the software, right? Everything that he's done, including all these things, and yet still, when he looks out at the operation, what does he see? What is it that he's seeing? He doesn't see the reflection of all his hard work, and it's got him questioning why. And he's about this close to pulling his finger out and saying, if one more person does one more thing, there's going to be consequences. He's just about had enough of all of this. Now I'm going to ask the room a question. This is like a parent-child relationship. What happens when a parent tells their child that I never want to see you doing this ever again? One or two things. Maybe the child never does it again. Or the child just gets really good at hiding things and they get really sneaky. And imagine if you had that in a safety culture. Imagine if your safety culture was just really good at hiding things. Is that where you want to be? Where people do things that aren't according to plan, and instead of coming and telling you, what do? They'll pick up the carpet and they'll sweep it right under and then drop it and hope nobody says anything. But the one day that you do find out is when it's too late. It's the day that something's gone catastrophically wrong and something has happened. Now, every single person in this room is an expert. You guys are the experts at what you do. You investigate, you find the data, you find the facts as to why things are happening in the way that they are. What is it that's taking place on the ground? What's the facts? What's the data? And you collect all that data, you collect all those facts, and then you disseminate it across the organization. You tell people the stuff that you're learning. But if only they listen. They're just not listening to what I'm having to say. Why are they not listening? And this is where a frontline worker's perspective comes in. Why is the front line not choosing to listen? You see, on this world that we live in, that spins around the sun, in 1943, there was a man who wrote a paper about human motivation and about what does it take for people to actually want to do stuff? What is it that inspires and motivates people to make a decision and to move in any particular direction? And that man was called Maslow. You guys know what I'm talking about? Who wants to shout? Hierarchy of needs. You see, Maslow's hierarchy of needs was discovered in 1943. It was the first time it came to our world. But since 1943, what's happened in our world? Has it changed at all? Just a little bit. Because 1996, let's fast forward from 43. 1996, Nokia creates a device they called the Nokia 9000 communicator. Hands up if you remember that device and its significance in our world, right? Have a think about what were you doing in 1996 when Nokia created this device. You see, that was the first ever device that had the capabilities of making phone calls, but also connecting you to the internet. It could do calls and it could do internet. In 1996, what were you doing? I'll give you a moment to think. What were you doing in 1996? Because I know what I was doing. I was being birthed into this world, blessing this existence with myself. But I was born in 1996, but that was where the world turned the page. See, we entered a digital transformation, an information age, where information became readily available to everybody. And the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, in my opinion, needs to change. Because this is what the hierarchy of needs is now. I saw a woman frantically running around with a charger, trying to find a plug socket just to plug her in, right? Just to try, and she was 8%. It was a dire situation. She managed to get herself plugged in. But this is what I'd call Mo's hierarchy of needs anyway, right? I need battery and I need Wi-Fi to survive. Hands up if you're the same, because I can't be the only one in this room, yeah? Battery and Wi-Fi. But what this has done in our information age is it means that information is everywhere. And we are absolutely bombarded with information, left, right, and center. So our brains haven't evolved much since 1943 and beyond, yet the amount of information that we get given has completely transformed. The amount of information that we have access to has transformed. But if our brain can't take it, what do we start to do? We start to say no to this, and no to this, and block, block, block. And we start to get very selective about what information we allow into our life. I'll say, yep, I'll take a bit of this, and I'll take a bit of that. And think of that what you want. Our brain can't simply handle the amount of information that's out there. Now, in a world where a safety manager is trying to get their information to a person, and we have the ability to block out more information than we let through, can you see where this is going? When you're trying to get a message to the world? Because we live in a world now where at the tip of our fingertips, we get to design what information we see. There are algorithms that know me and you better than you know yourself. They'll show you a video that will have you laughing till the morning, right? That's like, the amount of information there is these days. We get to decide what information we allow into our worlds and what information we don't allow into our worlds. And we get to be selective. And because we get to be selective, now we have skin in the game. We have skin in the game about what information we get to experience and live by. And you can tell me something. It doesn't mean I have to listen. Because I live in a world which is so personalized to me, I get to choose what information I keep in and keep out. And this is the amazing algorithms that we have at the tip of our fingers that allow us to experience the world. But how do you cut through all of this? You're a safety manager who's on a mission to try and cut through all of this information. How do you get to the frontline workers and actually get them to resonate with the thing that you're trying to say? There's a three-step process, in my humble opinion. And this is only one way of looking at it. There's plenty more ways. But I think there's three things that could really, really help you get a message to cut through. In order to be able to tell you these things, I'm going to have to tell you a story. There was an organization in the UK that went on a cultural transformation of their safety. And that cultural transformation took the organization and gave them a completely new mindset on every single individual that works within the organization, right? And once upon a time, after they began this transformation, they specialized in buses that travel around the airport and take people from A to B. And this particular individual who is sat driving the bus, let's just call him Ali. Ali was one of the hardest workers you'll find. Ali struggled to say no when you gave him a request. If you asked him to do something, he'll do it, even if he really had to pressure himself. Ali came from a household where he was the only breadwinner. He worked 2 jobs, and this was one of them. And one day he'd come into work, and I'll be honest, he was tired. He was very tired, but he had to do what he had to do. And he got to the end of his shift, and he thought, okay, I just want to get home. But his supervisor came in and asked for one little request. He said, Ali, could you stay on for like just 1 more hour? Just get us to the end of the shift and cover the handover because the other person's late. Now, Ali knew deep down he was knackered. He was tired. But what does Ali not know how to do? Say no. So Ali nodded his head. He said, sure, I'll do it. And as he took a bus full of people from the airplane to the terminal building, he was going round a roundabout, and Ali fell asleep. This bus hit a curb, went flying, and the people hit the floor. The woman went unconscious. Luckily, nobody was severely injured. Some people were injured, but nobody was severely injured. And this is a true story. And now imagine what Ali felt like. Ali felt absolutely in the dark. He felt so bad about the situation that he'd left his organization and he'd left his team, and he felt like he'd let everyone down. But was that his intention? Is that what he wanted to do? Yet still, in a situation like that, where Ali had caused a safety incident, and he was the cause of a safety incident, he found a corner, sat down, and just started to blame himself for everything. Now this organization, the leaders of this organization, decided that they don't want to sympathize with Ali. Instead, they want to take a more empathetic approach. And what does empathy mean rather than sympathy? Has anybody here heard of a guy called Simon Sinek by any chance? Hands up if you've heard of Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek on a podcast once was talking about this philosophy of being able to sit in the mud with somebody. What does it mean to sit in the mud with somebody? It means that when somebody's going through hardship, when somebody is going through a tough time, rather than swooping in and act like you can just solve all their problems and give them solutions to their problems, you just take a seat next to them. And you just let them be. Let them be where they are, and let them know that you're there to support them. Just let them know that you're there for them. No matter what, that you're here. And you can help. If they want that help, you're there for them. And what that organization done is, while they're on that journey, they sat Ali down and they said, look, Ali, we know how you feel, and we want to help you. We actually want to help you, not just trying to understand why that incident happened, but we want to help you understand yourself in this process. You see, they got him to do something that was a personality diversity indicator that got him to understand who he was. Is anybody familiar with like a personality indicator where you can be like a yellow red or a green blue, and these sort of code words mean something. It means that either you're really detail orientated, or you send emails just in the subject with no writing because you just want to get stuff done, or you're really empathetic, or you love to tell a story, or you're this or you're that. It helps you understand the type of person who you are. And when they gave Ali this indicator, guess what they discovered? They discovered that his personality style is the type of person who struggles to say no to things, really wants to help others, and he likes to get stuff done. So imagine Ali in this situation where he got asked to stay on an extra bit. His personality was like, I'll just get it done. I don't want to say no, so I'll just do it. When they helped him understand that about himself, this light bulb emerged in his brain. It was like, whoa, this is who I am. And what they got him is they took Ali and said, look, Ali, we want to roll out this training across the organization, and we want you to tell your story. Show the people in the organization that this is how we treated you in your time of hardship, and actually let that message propagate. They allowed Ali to stand in front of the trainings of all the organization's safety teams, and all the people in the organization, whenever they were on a safety training, Ali would pop up and he'd tell his story about one day he was driving a bus and fell asleep, and how the organization reacted to that. You see, that story was a catalyst that became to completely transform the way that the people in the organization viewed their leadership. The story was so powerful to bring home a message that they cared and that they had empathy, that it spread like wildfire. And it's not the first time stories spread like wildfire. Where did we come from? Ever since the cave eras, people were putting stories on the side of walls. Think my culture, I'm ethnically Iraqi, and I'll never forget when my dad would sit me down by my bedside as I was going to sleep and read me stories from our culture and our heritage about who we are. And it was so intrinsic to forming me into who I am. But you see, when you want to create a very powerful story, there is a process to follow. And the process looks something like this. And this is the bits that I would love for you to think about how you can take this home and apply it. When you're creating a story can't just be all sunshine and rainbows. Stories have to have a bit where things get really hard and people get uplifted from that hardship. I'm going to give you some examples. The Lion King. Mufasa was trampled on. Simba watched all of this happen. He ran away, but he came back. He started off on a journey where he was told all the land is theirs. He went through some hardship. He went right to the bottom of that barrel, and he built up from there. It's the reason these stories are so iconic. It's because there's hardship. And the reason why that's so powerful is because every single one of us goes through that. Every single one of us knows how hard it is sometimes. And it's our stories that resonate with those stories and make us feel something. What's the quote? The quote says, people don't remember what you told them, they remember how you made them feel. So how are you making your frontline workers feel about your organization? And it's the stories that can capture that. When you capture a story, you can embed lessons into those stories. You can embed meaning into those stories, and you can start to spread those messages far and wide using the power of stories. So taking the lessons from the organization, taking the lessons from the front line, turning them into stories and sharing them is such a powerful thing to do. Because once those messages start to spread, much like the story of Ali and him falling asleep while going around the roundabout at an airport with a bus full of people, and then more importantly, how his organization responded to him, that story began to form the culture of the organization. Is it new that cultures are that stories are part of our culture? It's nothing new. Every culture in this world, whether it's the ancient tribes of America, whether it's the Aborigines or in Africa, it's the stories that form culture. So if you want to form your culture and your safety culture in your organization, how much are you investing in your stories? Because that's what people will remember. There's a book called The Tipping Point. Anyone heard of The Tipping Point or Malcolm Gladwell in general? Absolute mastermind of his time. Malcolm Gladwell talks about this idea of the tipping point. It's how the little things make a big difference. It's how we spread messages in our world. And he talks about this thing called the stickiness factor. Where he talks about the stickiness factor, what he's saying is, how is it to get an idea to stick in somebody's mind? And storytelling is one of the key elements that increases the stickiness of an idea. Once you get an idea and a story that's really, really sticky, then you compile the people that can propagate that message. I'm going to give you a little taster of what he talks about. He talks about the 3 people that you really, really need to get. He calls it the law of the few. He says the few people that you need to get a message to really spread are the connectors. Those are the people who just know everyone. LinkedIn on legs. We all know a LinkedIn on legs, right? Find yourself a LinkedIn on legs. You need people who are mavens, people who are seen as knowledgeable. You need them. And the last one is you need salespeople, people who are really, really good at selling and getting people on board. You bring those 3 people together, give them a story that has got a stickiness factor, and you spread them through your organization, and you can watch that safety culture transform and spread just like wildfire. And once that story starts to spread, you've entered an upward spiral that carries the culture through, and it takes these stories from the ground and how the organization reacted to those individuals to begin to create the culture and create that spiral upwards. You see, I'm an engineer, so I had to put a gear in there somewhere, right? This is a quick little perspective on how the workforce language and behaviors are impacted with leader knowledge. The knowledge of our leaders is great, and their behavior is great, but they're completely disconnected to the workforce and the language of our workforce unless we get 2 things right. Unless we get engagement, and unless we get feedback. Unless we get these 2 things right, you can spin as fast as you want with your leadership language and behaviors, but unless you can connect it using engaging stories and an ear that's willing to listen with feedback, it will never bring you the desired outcome. This is where the focus has to be, and the most important part that I want to bring to life is how you can improve that engagement and the feedback. And that is where you can begin to look at the culture, the values and the norms of the organization and create a safe and efficient and reliable operation. There's a quote about changing perspectives. I hope in this presentation I was able to change your perspective, and that's me. Thank you very much. I did ask for questions, but we've run out of time. So if you have any questions, feel free to